Smith Vilbert, transfer out of Penn State, guy that's coming in, redshirt senior. I guess he had his COVID year. He had a medical year, so he's going into his 7th year of college football. I believe him and Ja'Kai Moore are both 7-year guys. Of course, Ja'Kai, we talked about on the offensive line side, but Smith, man, he's a guy that has played in some meaningful snaps. He was hurt 2023 season, missed majority of that year, but last year he actually had some meaningful snaps in the playoffs. I believe when they played Boise State, Notre Dame, had some key plays for them in those games. And I mean, when you're building a defensive lineman, he's 6'6", 282 pounds. And I mentioned he's coming from Penn State, and boys, they've put some pretty good defensive linemen in the league the past few years. They just had the first defensive line go off the board that I want to say Smith Vilbert was backing up.
Yeah, Abdul Carter.
Abdul Carter, yep. So this is a kid that if he can stay healthy, he's got upside. He's battled injuries throughout his career, but he showed some flashes last year in the playoffs, and I'm guessing that's probably what Lombardi and Bill saw. So I think he's a good get for us, and we've got this room that's full of a mix. We've got some veteran guys, we've got some young guys, we've got some guys that have played a few years, but definitely he's the guy that's been there the longest. What you think about him, Troy?
Yeah, man. I'm sitting here. I was, looking at the pictures and hearing you talk about him, man. And it's just kind of a thought kind of crossed my mind. It's like, when's the last time, or have we ever had a Penn State transfer come into Carolina? You know what I mean? Anytime you can get a guy, and I'll tell you, man, I've always thought that Penn State's defense, just the way that they play for years, man, has been one of the more elite units across college football ever since I've been a fan of the sport. And to get a guy that comes from a program like that, they compete on the national stage. It's Big Ten football. It's, Big Ten football at its best, I would say. James Franklin gets the most out of his guys. Now, granted, like you mentioned, Trevor, he was backing up a guy that went, top 10 pick. I think he was at third. Was he third overall?
Yep.
Yeah, something like that. So I mean, he backed up a top 3 pick in the NFL. I mean, he's got something from watching that kind of talent has had to have stuck. I think he's a guy that comes in, obviously looking for a more increased role, but expected to be a day one starter, in my opinion. Over there on the edge, or the defensive end, or whatever position he plays over there, either one. But a guy that, a big name, big time program, played a pretty good role with Penn State. I'm sitting here looking at his game logs. He saw, got action in quite a bit of games, against ranked competition, Notre Dame, SMU. Illinois at the time was ranked, and just, some of that Big Ten competition over there. So a great addition, to our defensive line. That is a unit, as Carolina fans have seen familiar faces for quite some time. Jahvaree Ritzie, Miles Murphy, guys like that, Bo. So a lot of new faces, but Smith Vilbert's definitely a name to circle and keep an eye on for a ton of great production this season.
Another big shoe he's going to have to fill. Kamen, guy we just had absolutely on the podcast a few days ago. So I was looking at this too, man. Originally, I know rankings don't mean anything, but he was originally a 3-star recruit, and in the transfer cycle, they had him as a 4-star.
Yeah.
So usually with most transfers, you see they'll start out 4-star, then they're a 3-star transfer. So he's moved up. So I thought that was pretty unique.
6'6", 282. I don't know if you mentioned his measurables or not, but that's a pretty lengthy guy. I mean, I think the last time we've had a guy that size was recently Des Evans. And I know there's kind of some player comps to him, floating around out there. We'll just have to see how Smith Vilbert plays out, but definitely a guy, when you talk about length and just, sheer size, he's definitely a good body to have, trying to put pressure in the backfield for sure.
Yeah. Trevor, you talked about, 3-star recruit, which, 7 years now into it, it's like obsolete, right? But, Now he's 4-star in the transfer portal. What do you think led into that bump? Do you think that has to go with his measurables plus experience on top of that? I mean, I feel like
I would
there has
say
to be
that, and the fact that Troy mentioned he's coming from Penn State. I mean, they
Yeah.
play. He played snaps there, and Penn State's kind of the standard when it comes to defense. I agree completely with Troy on that. So I'd say that, and then think about it, boys. This kid, I told y'all before we went live, he graduated high school in 2019. He's going to be facing some dudes that were in elementary school, middle school when this dude was graduating high school.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're all college kids now, but he's a lot older, than a lot of the dudes he's going to be playing.
So we're thinking him.
To credit that, Trevor, he spent every year except for this one in Penn State. He was in College Station. I think is that where they're at? College? No, that's College Station, Texas. Something like
Penn
that.
State is
where now you got me looking it up.
Pennsylvania, right? I mean,
it's Pennsylvania, but they have a word they call it.
Well, why Troy's
Happy
looking
Valley.
at
Happy Valley.
Happy Valley. There you go. He spent this is his 7th year, I think we said it was. Yep. He spent 6 seasons in Happy Valley. I mean, that he's been around. I mean, that right there means a lot. I mean, he's been around championship pedigree. He's been a part of some really dominant defenses. I mean, Penn State's ex-defensive coordinator is now the defensive coordinator at Clemson. So, I mean, that just kind of shows you, what at least ACC thinks of, guys
and they
coming.
They paid him a lot of money to come there.
Exactly. So, I think, anytime you can get a guy, and I said it with the kind of the offensive line breakdown, anytime you can get a guy, that's played snaps at that level of competition, it's a good get. I expect him to be a key contributor for our defensive line this season.
So, I mean, I think it's maybe safe to say him and Ja'Kiah Moore, the ad from South Carolina in his 7th season as well, due to Redshirt medical, are probably the 2 oldest players on the team.
I would think so.
Yeah, I would too.
Gotcha.
I'm hammering the over on that, Phyllis.
Hammer it. So you guys are saying that, we can look forward to, with Smith Vilbert being a day one contributor, coming off the edge, very good, in the run defense. Anything else you'd like to add?
He played in all 16 games last season. 12 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. And I mentioned his, 6'6", his measurables, 1 pass deflection, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery. And played 339 snaps. So we're talking about a guy, man, that's just, I mean, he's looking for an increased role. Obviously, ACC to Big Ten is, I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's somewhat of a step down.
Yeah.
And I mean, that usually leads to, a higher return on production. So, I think, go ahead.
I was going to say, he was playing his best ball at the end of the year. Go back and watch Penn State in the college football playoffs. He's playing some of his best ball down the stretch.
And that's coming off of a season that he missed the whole year. He missed his whole junior year due to a leg injury. So he took a medical red shirt. I mean, he was so that kind of held him back a little bit going into this season, just nursing that, how, depending on how extensive that injury was. But for him to come back and appear in all 16 games and play just under 400 snaps. And like you said, Trevor, he had a lot of production towards the end of the season and some very, very meaningful games for Penn State.
Tar Pit crew, thanks for tuning in today. You just heard a clip from a recent episode where we broke down one of the key position groups. If this episode hit the mark, do us a favor, like it, drop a comment, and share it with a friend. That kind of support keeps the podcast rolling. You can catch full episodes of the Tar Pit Podcast on Spotify and YouTube. Don't forget to follow and subscribe today. The Tar Pit Podcast is proudly powered by Untapped Sports Network. Thanks for listening, and as always, go Heels.